All right, so today my presentation is going to be the case of the United States versus Edith Winster. It's a same-sex marriage case, so let's get into it. Edith Winster is the woman on the right hand side on the top photo. She's in the same position as the bottom photo, and her wife Thea is on the left side. So a little bit about them and how the case started. So Edith Winster shared her life with her wife Thea Spire for 44 years until she unfortunately passed away in the year 2009. But they got married in Canada the year of 2007, and they're originally from New York, which they were considered to be married in their home state. When Edith's late wife passed away, she was not able to claim estate tax marital deduction, which is able to provide the deduction from the adjusted gross estate for all property passing to the surviving spouse, which would be Edith. But due to the act DOMA, which is Defense of Marriage Act, which we'll get more into on the next slide. So DOMA defines marriage for all federal purposes, but for the legal union between man and a woman. Due to this act's discriminatory policy, she was not able to claim any of her wife's estate taxes, which later she had to pay a total of $350,000 in federal state taxes just because DOMA refused to see their marriage other than man and woman. So here's pictures of her on the news and giving a speech. All right, now let's get more into the case. So it begins. Windsor puts in the request for a complete full refund, as one would do when they're deserved their right, to their money. But as we can imagine, the IRS rejected her request due to DOMA, which was the act that was still placed at the time, and they quote unquote replied with that DOMA violates the equal protection guaranteed of the U.S. Constitution because it recognizes marriages of heterosexual couples but not of the same sex couples. So they didn't they denied her. They denied her money back. So this is the reason why we have the United States versus Windsor's case, because they didn't want to refund her money. So let's get into more. All right. So DOMA prevents the federal government from recognizing same-sex marriages, was declared unconstitutional by the Obama administration in February 2011, and the Justice Department no longer was defending it. So later in April 2011, the Republican leadership of Congress intervened in the case, vowing to preserve DOMA. And then later in June and 24th in 2011, the plaintiff moved for summary judgment, and the New York State Attorney General Eric asserted that DOMA violates the rights of lesbians and gay couples, and and oh sorry, yeah, just he was just saying that it violates their rights, and it's unacceptable. In a decision issued June 6, 2012, District Judge Barbara Jones ruled that uh, quote, quote unquote Section 3 of the so-called Defense of Marriages Act unconstitutional, discriminates against marriage same-sex couples. So ultimately, this ruling declared that DOMA was unconstitutional, and it had no right in um, treating marriage between man and a woman, that it should be seen. Um, it shouldn't be seen like that. We should see it more than that. All right, and we go to the decision. A landmark decision between five of the four majority of the ruling by the Supreme Court issued on June 27, 2013, found DOMA Section 3 it to be not consistent with the Constitution, and determined that whether federal benefits and protections can be granted to married gay and lesbian couples cannot be discriminatory. So, to me, this basically says that it's just not up to date with how the world was being, so it needed to be changed. So that was the ruling, and I got this photo of the Supreme Court that was apparently well, no, that was on the case, that were the people um on that case. So let's get into Anthony Kennedy with a quote that I found interesting. So Anthony Kennedy, which is a former associate of the Supreme Court, who was on this case, said that the history of DOMA's enactment and its own text demonstrates that interference with the equal dignity of the same-sex marriages, a dignity conferred by the state in the exercise of their own sovereign power, was more than an incidental effect of the federal statute. It was its essence. Alright. So dissenting opinions, I actually found a website where it showed um, the dissenting opinions of the Supreme Court, and I decided to quote them just because I thought it'd be like powerful and interesting to see what these people said word for word about this case, and why that DOMA should never have been um, uh, taken out as a law. So um, yeah, so I wanted to leave those there to whoever comes across to my PowerPoint, just because I thought it'd be interesting to read quote for quote of what um, these people said, the Supreme Court. Which you can also match their names to the pictures that I have over here, so you can put a face as well to these people. All right, let's get into my thoughts. So ultimately, I I've never heard of this case before until I saw it on the list of cases that I could choose from, and I thought, what not more interesting than to pick um, a case like this that we just um, because I we are in Pride Month, or Pride Month just ended, so I thought it would be a good way to shine some light on the positive side of the LGBTQ community. But overall, I respect and admire Eddie Winster for being brave and standing up for her community for a right that should be equal to everyone. Because the LGBTQ community didn't have to face stoma and are able to love and marry without a barrier in the way. But um, I can't ignore the fact of how things are in the world right now as well. That has me questioning that what comes next, like what are we doing as a nation? What are we doing as a world? Um, if with something as important as the abortion rights taken away from the tip of our fingers, the tip of this nation's fingers, um, people, myself, can only assume the worst of where are we going. like what is the next step for us, um, for the children, for our children. Um, so I feel like that that our rights, the people's rights, are at stake with um, the talk that same-sex marriage will be illegal in 25 out of 32 states. So when Roe versus Wade got overturned, they the Supreme Court was going to look into the Same-Sex Marriage Act, and try to overturn that case too. I haven't looked into it much if there has been any more um, looked into by the Supreme Court, but we can only assume the worst. If something as as strong and and a necessity as abortion rights was taken away just like by the snap of my fingers, what makes um myself think or other people think that they can't overturn the same-sex marriage act? So I feel like um, that as we make progress, as the government makes has made progress over the years, that it just feels like we're taking steps back. Um, but I do feel like that, like the power of the people can make a difference on things, and just standing up for what is ours, for our rights and what we need, is something that we need to do at this time. um so yeah, I didn't want to leave on like a super serious sad um point, but I just it's my thoughts, my opinions. But yeah, that was my PowerPoint, and I'll end off with the flag, the rainbow flag that represents the LGBTQ community. And yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation, and I really enjoyed this class. Yeah.